your presentation and have some Q&A. Hopefully we'll have enough time to do that. But anyway, as we started to talk to different clubs about the subject matter, it is so much in need. There isn't a single person, it seems, that doesn't have some issues with regard to their family or some individuals. And one of the things that you called for was to take care of our own, to take care of Rotarians within our district. And we ended up having an introduction to NAMI, the National Association of Mental Illness, that is based basically in Washington, D.C., and they have these branches all over the United States, including in Miami, Florida, which handles both the Miami-Dade County and also Monroe County. And there's also the Fort Lauderdale or Broward County area that we've started conversations with as well. But we've come to find out that we have so many different benefits with aligning with them. And our goal as well is to have a cost-based club. And Joe Roth, who's our district chair for membership, is helping out with that. And to say a few words with regard to NAMI, they have an annual run and fundraiser that they do at the Miami Zoo facility, where many, many people come. And we've been afforded to have a table there as well for Rotary and invite people to find out about our cost-based club. So we're excited about that. And they provide pro bono a lot of services, including family-to-family learning programs, which they teach things such as effective communication strategies, treatment options, collaborative problem solving, as an example. They also have signature programs for the young and the youth, young adults. They're on campus presently already at the University of Miami, Florida International Universities, and other schools and colleges, and as well as in some high schools. Our local high school here in our area, which is Key Biscayne, is Mass Academy, and came to find out they've already had conversations with them. And so we've established also a program and try to find champions, as we call them, to work with Rotaract and Interact in our district. So that's so exciting to have this plan on the books. They also have a crisis line, 988, and other resources. And the big one, we did a global grant, started 2 years ago, with Jennifer Jones and her club, Rosalind Windsor up in Canada, and our Key Biscayne Club, Miami, Florida. And it was basically and is a telecounseling program for kids. And Dr. Renee Guevara, I think I saw you were on screen wave so they can see you, is involved with that, with the Miami Children's Hospital, and involved as a pediatrician to start to diagnose some of the issues that kids have 18 and under. So we had a $250,000 global grant that we raised the money pretty quickly, and had the great news today from Jennifer that we've finally got some of the paperwork needed, but we've got $335,945 to go towards our second global grant, which will do some amazing work. The initial one, just briefly, had about 417 unique patients and over 800 individual telecounseling things that occurred. So that's kind of a brief, quick little thing that we've been doing. And we have individuals as well. Lalita, I see there that you're on, and other members that have worked even prior to this mental wellness committee coming on board on individual programs there. But coming into the cause-based clubs, you can share some of the things you're doing, finding other folks, and we have the connections of finding the funding and the wonderful help that we get from Rotary international, on global grants, but it's really finding the commitment for the local people here to commit to doing certain programs that we can choose 2 or 3 of them to try to accomplish, and we can grow them as we get more members. Well, I've said my piece, and again, Gordon, thank you so much for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter, and thank you everybody for giving me the chance to join you this evening. As I said earlier, I look around the screen and I see so many familiar faces. It hardly seems almost a year, Peter, since we bumped into each other standing waiting on a tram in Melbourne at the convention in Australia. And as you've already said, in just a few short weeks' time, we're going to be back at an international convention, this time in Singapore, and I hope to see many of you there. I saw a lot of hands going up, so that was very encouraging. There's a lot I would like to talk to you about this evening, but I am delighted that you have specifically asked me to address one topic that is very close to my heart, and I know it's close to all your hearts, and I also know it is gaining a great deal of traction around the Rotary world just now. And that, of course, is the whole topic of mental health, mental well-being, mental wellness. Much of what you're going to hear in the next 15, 20 minutes, you will probably have heard already, because, as you know, it's something that I have been majoring on during my term as president. I think the important thing to recognise at the outset is that mental health, mental well-being isn't always the easiest of topics to discuss. So before I even begin, I want to give advance notice that I might be discussing some difficult issues that can be triggering for some people who may have experienced them in some way. When we talk about mental health and wellness, we need to be very careful and compassionate in the words that we choose and give people space and understanding. But just because the topic can be difficult, it doesn't mean that we should avoid it. The fact is, as we all know, there are many people who believe that mental health is all about illness and weakness. But of course, nothing could be further from the truth. Yes, there are some mental health conditions that are diagnosable diseases. And it's wonderful just how treatable all of these have become in recent years. But mental health is about so much more than that. It's about people finding meaning. It's about people finding connection. It's about people finding purpose. And it's about understanding. And sometimes it is simply having someone to talk to about the everyday challenges in life. Now, many people build this kind of resilience through religious faith. Others find it in being part of a committee, just like yours, where we work together in common purpose to help our fellow human beings face difficulties and to thrive. Still others find these connections by working with mental health professionals in therapy, conducted either in person or increasingly nowadays online. And many people find that they strengthen their mental health by building deep personal connections with family, with friends, and with loved ones that allow for vulnerability. Connections where we freely ask the question, not simply, how are you, but how are you really? It still troubles me that there are some parts of the world where it's not even permitted to discuss mental health. And I honestly believe, and I will go on to explain how successful we are being, that Rotary, because of our global reach, is uniquely positioned to help change that. We can fight that stigma. We can raise awareness of mental health needs, and we can and we are taking a leadership role in expanding access to mental health care. Right from the very start, Rotary has been about embracing our humanity and building personal connections. We've grown into an amazing global network of interconnected community leaders, leaders who share a deep commitment to doing good in the world. But what makes Rotary powerful isn't just what we do for the communities we serve. We also support and empower each other by creating a safe space for our members to bring their whole authentic selves. We show each other comfort and care. I mentioned earlier about these deep personal connections that are so important for mental wellness. The ones where people feel safe discussing what troubles them most. Those kind of connections can and are built one-to-one right here in Rotary. When we make those kinds of caring investments in each other's, we strengthen our friendship, we strengthen our clubs, and we strengthen ourselves. Because the research shows that performing acts of kindness is the single most effective step anyone can take to protect our sense of well-being and to make us more resilient to all the challenges life throws our way. As many of you know, I know what it's like to see someone close to me suffer in silence through adversity. And I'm sure all of us, perhaps unknowingly, have experienced loved ones suffering in a similar manner. At the International Assembly in Orlando in January of 2023, I shared publicly for the first time how I had seen that all too close at hand when my only brother, Ian, descended into the depths of despair and depression that ultimately led him to take his own life 10 years ago. With the benefit of hindsight, Ian had been struggling for some time, despite being highly successful in his chosen profession, and despite having the most loving wife and family, and he just could not bring himself to ask for help. Was that for fear of being seen as weak? Was that for fear of being judged, or was that even for fear of being rejected? These are three questions we will never know the answer to, but I might venture to suggest that one of the main reasons that my brother and so many others like him, and I have discovered just how many others there are like him, as people have shared with me over the past 15 months, reach the point they do, is that mental health remains such a taboo subject, and that mental health services remain in such short supply. I know, and I am now being shown, that Rotary can do something about that. I know that we can break the taboo about discussing mental health, and we can play our part in that. I'm confident we can illuminate mental health needs near and far. We can help one another feel more supported as fellow Rotary members and as neighbours and as friends. We can advocate for mental health services, and we can build bridges with experts in the mental health space to help expand access to treatment. Of course, the good news is we are not starting this effort from scratch. The Rotary Action Group for Mental Health Initiatives has been focused on these kinds of issues for several years now, and I've been so grateful to them for their leadership through the year as we continue to build awareness. When my term as president is complete, this focus on mental health will live on through the Rotary Action Group for Mental Health Initiatives leadership. Indeed, I have a meeting with them this very Saturday morning to address this topic, because we must not let this focus disappear on the 30th of June. Too many people need us, and too many of us want to help. I have to say, and I'd say this not to blow my own trumpet, in my 40 years in Rotary, I cannot think of another focus I have seen that has been so widely embraced as this. Everywhere Heather and I have gone, people have both recognised the need for us to be involved in the mental wellness space and have wanted to get involved. They're not just talking the talk, they are walking the walk. Rotary clubs around the world already have numerous mental health focused projects. We've heard of some already in Peter's introductory remarks. And mental health care fits comfortably within several of our areas of focus. There are some great global grant projects already underway. We heard of one earlier, that have tremendous promise. And perhaps the most encouraging sign to me is that this initiative is continuing to have an impact and the number of grants continues to rise. In Korea, thanks to a series of global grants, Rotary is taking up a critical leadership role in building a series of mental health centres to support the victims of child abuse in that country. These global grants are lending support to children whose struggles were not even acknowledged, helping them find hope and helping them build resilience, all the while demonstrating the importance of expanded mental health services in that country. In District 9910 in New Zealand, they have an especially exciting project. Anxiety and depression are affecting children worldwide at an alarming rate, especially in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. And the problem is particularly acute in Northland, New Zealand. A woman named Kat Levine created an innovative program called Think and Be Me, built on the proven, highly effective techniques of cognitive behavioral therapy. The project uses fun, interactive activities to teach children that altering the way they think changes the way they feel. This emotional literacy training is being provided to 9,000 children in 60 schools from Wellsford in the south to the far north over a 3-year period. The programme was heavily tested before rolling out across these schools, and we are confident and we are already seeing that children are gaining skills that will benefit them for life. Earlier this year in India, I saw a similar wonderful initiative being implemented in District 3030 by the Rotary Club of Nagpur under the guidance of Rita Agarawal through a global grant. Some of you may already be aware of it because of its close links with the Rotary Club of Naples in Florida. Wellness in a Box is delivering a depression awareness curriculum to ages 12 and older, and a web-based Train the Trainer module. And it focuses on breaking the stigma of anxiety and depression, as well as increasing awareness by enhancing coping skills and knowledge, by suicide prevention, and by training teachers as school counsellors. In addition to India, Wellness in a Box has been implemented in places like Puerto Rico and Nigeria, as well as the US. It breaks stigma by showing treatment is available and that some cases are preventable. It raises awareness with measurable improvements in knowledge, in negative attitude, and in confidence in help seeking. And it increases access to earlier treatment by communicating the local protocol for referral. The great thing about the last two projects I mentioned, Think and Be Me and Wellness in a Box, is that both are replicable and scalable. While Heather and I were in Guatemala, there was interest in launching it there. And overall, right now, there are more than 50 global grant projects with a mental health focus underway, and dozens more projects are being implemented at the club and district level. So I'm excited and delighted that we have already begun to embrace mental health and mental wellness in the Rotary world. By prioritising it this year, I hope and I honestly believe it will be possible to keep this commitment in the years ahead. But to do this, I need to encourage you to continue to help us erase the stigma associated with emotional well-being. Help us raise awareness of mental health needs and help us improve access to preventative and interventive mental health services. It's a big ask, but it is an important task. And I am asking each and every one of you to remain champions of this effort. Together, in the area of mental health and wellness, just as we do in so many other areas, we will create hope in the world. Which brings me nicely to the second and final thing I want to consider in my time with you this evening. What exactly are we trying to achieve as we create hope in the world? Well, ultimately, I would suggest that by creating hope in the world, we are creating a more equal world, a more loving world, a more peaceful world. Thankfully, as members of Rotary, we are committed to working for peace. And never forget, peace is more, so much more than simply the absence of war or armed conflict. Peace is freedom. Peace is healthy children and adults. Peace is clean water and sufficient food. Peace is education, human rights, dignity, clothing, housing, concern for mankind, and most of all, peace is love. One of my great inspirations, the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, and I quote, "We must discover the power of love, the redemptive power of love. And when we discover that, we will be able to make of this old world a new world, for love is the way." And you know what? Love is the way. Actually, ultimately, love is the only way, because love can help and heal when nothing else can. Love can lift up and liberate when nothing else will. Love can lead and guide us along the way, beyond our unenlightened self-interest and beyond our factions and divisions, because love can show us the way to be both human and humane. The way of love spoken of by Dr. King is the way to human civilization and life, whereas the slaves of America's antebellum South used to say, "There will be plenty good room, plenty good room, plenty good room for all." Now, the obvious question, and the one many of you are probably asking right now, is, could it work? Could it work not simply in theory, but could it work in the factories and on the assembly lines? Could it work in the corporate boardrooms? Could it work in the councils of politics? Could it work in the world, in the hard, tough, rough world? Well, it's not easy. But this way of love is the only thing that has ever worked for human progress and human civilization, and for the good and the welfare and the well-being of the entire human family. Consider the alternative. I believe that the opposite of the kind of love I talk about is not hate, but is selfishness, self-centeredness. And history has shown time and time and time again that selfishness and self-centeredness does not work. It has never worked, and it never will. Unselfish, sacrificial love is the only way that can work. It is the only way that has ever worked. And if you don't believe me, just stop. And to use a word we heard rather a lot in Rotary last year, imagine. Imagine a world where love is the way. Imagine homes and families where love is the way. Imagine neighborhoods and communities where love is the way. Imagine business and commerce where love is the way. Imagine governments and nations where love is the way. Where love is the way, then no child will go to bed hungry in this world ever again. Where love is the way, justice will flow like a mighty river. Where love is the way, poverty will become history. And where love is the way, there is room, plenty of room for everyone. Because where love is the way, where peace is the way, we actually treat each other like we are family. And what better aspirations could we as Rotarians have? What greater hope could we as Rotarians create in this world than a sense of family and of love and of peace? It is really all about caring. We need to care for each other, because only by caring for each other can we begin to care for the world. Our friends, thank you once again for allowing me to join this meeting this evening. Each and every one of you is a credit to the badge you wear, and I am proud, very proud, to belong to the same organisation as you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gordon. That was really amazing and inspiring. And thank you for starting this, this movement to end the stigma and start the conversation about mental well-being. You know, one of the things that you mentioned in your speech at International Assembly was that Rotary is an organization that takes care of its own as well as the communities that we serve. And it's been the premise of my governor visit. It's one of the things I've mentioned about taking care of ourselves and taking care of our own, because it's like when you get on an airplane, you have to put your oxygen mask on first before you can take care of others. So what advice do you give for us to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and our own members first?
Well, I think first of all, it's important that we do take care of ourselves, and it's important that we prioritize time for ourselves. Now, that's probably pretty rich coming from me this year, because quite frankly, as I told somebody the other day, I can count on the fingers of one finger the number of days off I have had during the last 9.5 months. But it is important that we make time for ourselves and we find an opportunity to be mindful. And I find that, you know, from a personal coping mechanism, I find I can be very mindful if I can get out for a walk for 10 minutes each day. I can be very mindful if I can just get outside and look at the sky for a while every day. And some days that opportunity doesn't always arise. But I think number one is we do have to take care of ourselves. But then we've got to make our Rotary clubs the sort of place where people are comfortable talking about their own situations, their own concerns. But if we're going to make people comfortable about talking about these concerns, we've got to be prepared to listen to these concerns. And it's very important that if we do ask that second question, how are you really, that we're ready to listen to whatever we get told and support people if they need support in any way, shape or form. But it is important, you know, Rotary is a big part of all of our lives. It's an enormous part of my life at present. It will remain an enormous part of my life. But there are times when you have just got to walk away for a while and just relax and find your own coping techniques. And that's going to be different from for each of us.
And that's one of the things I've mentioned, that at the end of the day, it's just Rotary, because individually people matter more than the collective works. And if we're burnt out or stressed out, we can't do the good work. So I want to make sure that we're taking care of individually so that we can continue to take care of others.
Absolutely. But, you know, just being part of a group like this helps as well, because we all gain energy from each other. People have said to me on more than one occasion, you know, how do you manage to maintain your stamina level? How do you manage to maintain your energy as you go around the world and you fly from here to here to here? I say, you know, you only need to walk into a room of Rotarians and a room of people like this virtual room we are just now, and you gain strength, you gain energy from the people you are with. And that's certainly something that I've been very grateful for this last 9.5 months, is the energy I've been able to absorb from all the people I've met.
That's wonderful. We did
Thank
have
you
a couple.
Oh, I'm sorry, Barbara, go ahead.
I was saying we had a couple of questions and comments in the chat that I'm hoping that we could address. One is from Mike Stafford. He says, here in Freeport, Bahamas, we don't seem to recognize problems in the household, but we see it on the streets with our homeless population, and we don't seem to have a system to deal with it. Is there a correlation between the wealth and poverty of the affected suffering persons?
Could you say that again? I didn't quite catch the last part of that. Or is it in the chat? Can I try and find it in the chat?
Yeah. It's not too far up. It's one of the last ones that was just there from Mike Stafford, an MS.
Okay, hang on. There's a lot of chats. Got it. Thanks, Mike. If I read that correctly, I think you're saying, you know, is mental ill health the prerogative of the poor? And of course it isn't. I don't think there is, like, you know, in terms of correlation between the wealth, poverty of the affected people, I think the lack of mental well-being can affect anybody, regardless of their wealth or their status or anything. And so we have to be conscious of that as well. Many people, but you're absolutely right. When we see it on the streets with our homeless population, but of course many of these people have started off with wealth and have found themselves in those positions.
Yeah, in fact, Mike raised his hand.
We don't seem to recognize it in our households. If we do, I think it's taboo and we keep it secret. And then on the streets, we have a lot of homeless people that are walking around, touching their face and banging their head. And unfortunately, our Rotary clubs and our government, and we don't seem to have a proper social health system that deals with it. And I'm not sure, you know, I've never thought about it before tonight, but there it is.
That could be where Rotary comes in.
So I think that is where Rotary can have a part to play. You know, the mental health system isn't broken. It's just not actually been created yet. You know, it doesn't need fixed, because in many parts of the world, and that's not, you know, you talk about your government, Mike, I'm presuming you're referring to the Bahamian government. There's many parts of the world where this is the case. And that's where we have to advocate and we have to play our part to encourage the establishment of good mental health facilities. And it's going to take time. That's what I mean. It's not going to happen by the end of June. That's why we're going to continue to be in this game in the long term.
Yeah. Gordon, we're joined by Susan Raker from NAMI, and she has a question as well.
Oh, thank you. And I'm just so honored to be here. And thank you, Peter, for that wonderful introduction about the work that we're doing together. I actually wanted to also respond to Mike's question, because one of the things that we find, and it's universal, is that we're dealing with mental health when it's at the a similar stage as stage 4 in cancer, and as a result, it follows through all kinds of social determinants, including homelessness. And one of the things that we do at NAMI is educate people about the early warning signs, so that we're starting to drive the help-seeking behavior that you talked about, Dr. McInally, the help-seeking behavior early on, by reducing stigma and reducing barriers, and giving people information about what are the early warning signs. And unfortunately, you know, those homeless folks have endured years of psychosis and unwellness. And I think the trick is to educate the population and remove the stigma, so that mental illnesses are treated at the very, very earliest stages. And I just wanted to mention also, you are all invited to a program. I put it in the chat on April 20th. We're having our second annual suicide awareness conference called Honest Talk About Suicide and Message of Hope. It's free to the public and just requires registration. And I invite you all to join us. Thank you.
Susan, I think you make a very good point there in terms of early intervention, and in fact, you know, prevention being better than cure. We have an opportunity. We're not clinicians, you know, we're not pretending to be experts in the field. And so in terms of people who are suffering from diagnosable conditions, as I mentioned in my presentation, that perhaps is not where we can intervene most, but where our interventions can take place is at the early stage.
Right.
It's breaking that stigma. You know, I always say we talk so freely about our physical health. Sometimes we talk rather too freely about our physical health, but we keep our mental well-being and our mental health under wraps. And we just need to lift that wrap and allow people to feel freer about talking about the way they feel, because sometimes even just talking about the way they feel allows them to unburden and helps and stops them progressing into something more serious.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Christine Vanderlyn has a question as well. Christine, you want to unmute yourself?
Okay. Good evening,
Okay, here we
everyone. Thank you, Governor Barbara. Good evening, everyone. I'm from the Rotary Club of Grand Bahama, and I just want to reiterate on what Mike was talking about on the island. You know, we have 700 islands, and all have been devastated somewhat by hurricanes and other disasters, natural disasters. So obviously, there's been traumatic. Many persons might have been affected, or families after the loss of life. But I'm happy to say that the Rotary Club of Grand Bahama has just recently partnered with an organization called Resilience Center, which deals with mental health. They have doctors that come in and help those students, children who lost parents, and children who lost other family members in Dorian in particular. Governor Barbary, you know the horrific storm that we went through where many people lost their lives. And so we have a movement going. And just this past Monday, we had a sort of a meeting for the community to come and speak. We actually, if you go to the Rotary Club of Grand Bahama's website, sorry, not website, our Facebook page, it was live streamed, but it's also there recorded. You would see where we spoke openly, and persons went up and spoke openly about their experiences, including myself and my son, who had suicidal tendencies after his divorce. So we all somewhat are affected by some form of mental situations in our families. And so I'm happy to say that our club has partnered with this organization to further help the community.
Well, again, if I might jump in, that's wonderful, Christine. And that's exactly the sort of thing that we're hoping clubs will do, you know, identify the needs in their clubs and districts, identify the needs in their specific area, because we recognize the needs are different. The needs are different in the Bahamas to the needs in the US, to the needs in Scotland, where I come from. But once we identify the needs, we can start to make some inroads into them. And you're clearly doing wonderful work there. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Christine. Donald Glass, this is turning into the Grand Bahama Hour, but welcome, Donald, from beautiful Freeport, Grand Bahama.
Yes, good evening. Thank you, District Governor Barbara, and good evening, President Gordon, and to all of our Rotarian members. I'm from the Rotary Club of Lucaya, and I guess, again, I just want to mention mental health here in the Bahamas. We are a work in progress. Mental institutions are developing, I should say. There's an example I want to give you. There was a member of our church who during services used to have these outbursts, and occasionally he would get up and walk straight into the chair of the assistant pastor or of a reverend, and had to be coached to walk down very quietly. Fortunately, his mother at the time was alive, so she was able to deal with him. But unfortunately, she passed away. And there was a situation where he was arrested and was imprisoned, and he died in the cell. Now, when I said died, he was killed, because the situation there did not really provide the kind of facility to deal with someone in that condition. So I'm saying that we are developing. We are at a stage where organizations such as the one that past President Christine mentioned, they are assisting within the community, these different groups, to try to uplift the Bahamas in terms of mental health. Because again, past President Stafford also mentioned that the individuals we see along the roadway, and sometimes individuals might want to take advantage of them, unfortunately. But as I said, I continue to repeat, but we are a work in progress, and our government is in the process of looking at that. Hopefully, we'll get to the point where you'll have a focus much stronger.
Thank you, Donald.
My pleasure.
Frank has his hand up.
Lalita.
Hello, everybody. I am in India right now at 5 o'clock, I think, in the morning. Nice to see everybody. It's great to see this group together. Thank you, Peter and Susan and Barbara, and most of all, thanks to our president who has started this as our what do you call focus for this year. We have been working here in Miami for some time, and with Susan Rachel and others. So I see NAMI doing work nationally. I think Rotary could give that an international approach and get it to the whole world. I think something like NAMI being available to everywhere, to everybody, to work together will be amazing. So what we did for polio, you, Mr. President, could do it for mental health, start it for mental health. You have started already, but we should further it. My dream was, I lost a daughter to mental health. So my dream is to see all the best mental health researchers and various programs to come together, have a platform to discuss what works, what doesn't work, and to come up with new systems. And I think it's just the beginning. I am so thankful that you did start this, and I'm here working with you and will be willing to get more people involved. Thank you again.
Well, thank you. And, you know, that's a very important point you raise in terms of if this is going to carry on and if this is going to grow, it has to grow from...
I see.
Sorry, there's somebody else's microphone on there. But if this is going to grow, it's going to grow from the ground level up. It's going to come, the groundswell is going to come from around the world. And I see that groundswell developing, you know, in some respects, maybe even much greater than I'd hoped when I started this focus 15 months ago. I'm seeing that there is a groundswell. I'm not saying that this is going to be the next polio, because quite honestly, we have to focus very hard on ending polio. I heard only today that we have now 4 cases in the world during 2024. And it's so important that we continue to focus on polio. But from my point of view, wouldn't it be wonderful if this was the next global initiative, because it is a global pandemic. Just as polio affected the entire world 35 years ago, or most of the entire world when we started that project, then this is something that I believe we could make a big difference in. But the desire for that has to be there. I think the desire's there, but the will has to come from the ground up. And I'm so pleased, that's why I'm so pleased to engage with a group like this that are so committed to it. It's affirming to me when I hear some of these comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Peter and I mentioned that we introduced this last year at our district training assembly, just the concept of a mental health committee, and we had over 65 people sign up. We were blown away. So we've been having these meetings and thought we need to turn this into an e-club so that we can even invite professionals from outside of the area as well. So it's nice to see all the people in the chat who said they'd be interested in learning more about the club that we want to start with the cause base of mental health and mental well-being.
Yeah.
We only have time for a couple more questions, but Chanello from the beautiful island of Grand Bahama.
Yes,
Hello,
thank you. Hi, thank you. Like our international president said in his opening, that when we discuss mental health is a topic that is so taboo. And past President Christine and PAG Donald and PAG Mike can attest to the fact that it is very taboo on our islands, in the Bahamas at large, because when they hear mental health, they don't consider that your mental health is a health that you you take care of, just like your physical health, just like your spiritual and emotional health. They just think of mental illness. So I think in our country, we need to do more literature and more awareness of mental health. And it was so sad to hear what happened with the young man that PAG Donald mentioned. So I think when he was arrested, the courts was not aware, because usually in a situation like that, coming as an officer of the courts, usually in a situation like that, they would send them to Sandilands. They would not usually put them in the general prison population. So it all goes back to the lack of awareness. It's just my 5 cents. Thank you.
A very valuable 5 cents, if I may say. It does go back to awareness. It goes back to recognition, and it comes back to the fact that it's so stigmatized.
Yes. Okay. Renee, I know your Zoom user is Renee. You're on mute though.
Thank you very much for the input and for the opportunity. I want to give a shout out to Peter Verbeck, former district governor, because he was responsible largely for organizing this mental health initiative at Nicholas Children's Hospital. I'm a primary care physician. In the first month alone that this was available, we were able to refer 25 adolescents who had answered in a positive manner to one of the instruments that we normally use to detect, basically mental health issues, things like anxiety and depression, that you would not know is going on unless you ask. And there's a way of doing this, and it's not asking them in front of the parents. But at any rate, so just something that simple, that seemingly was just as a start of a new program. In the first month alone, as a single practitioner, I was able to refer 25 patients. That's how important it is. And my 2 cents worth, and going back to your point, at the end of your cycle, this should not go back in a back burner. I think that the key is to keep a high level of awareness. It's not comfortable, it's time consuming, but it is essential and well worth its while. That's what I wanted to say.
Wonderful. Gordon, I know I want to be respectful of your time. I appreciate you being here. Is there anything else you want to add? I know there were a couple other people with their hand raised, want to make some comments, but this is your platform. Are there any other additional comments you want to add?
No, I mean, the only comment I would want to add, Barbara, is, well, a couple of things. One, thank you so much for your interest in the topic. And please, let's not drop this when Gordon McInally is long gone and forgotten. Let's make sure that this is something that becomes part of Rotary's DNA. Whether it becomes the next polio, it's not for me to say, but certainly let's make sure that this is something that we continue to work in, because the problem's not going away. And if the problem's not going away, we need to be there to help address the challenges that we have with it. And so we need to make sure, and this cause-based club that you talk about is a wonderful way to do that. Becoming part of the action group is a wonderful way to address it as well, and to make sure that we continue to work in this space. And I mean, I've got some great ideas from the course of the comments that we've had, and just the feeling I get that I can take to the action group when I meet them on Saturday morning, and make sure that this is something that goes forward. The great thing is there is a spirit within Rotary at international level to see it go forward. It's not something that people are putting up any obstacles to at all. Many of the staff who have supported it during this year, recognizing that, the staff support, and one of the ways we structured the whole initiative was to support it through an action group, not through the staff, because the staff can only support one president at a time. That's understandable. But many of the staff who have been supporting it this year have decided to join the action group so that they can continue supporting it in their spare time. And that, for me, speaks volumes of the importance of the issue.
It is important, yeah. For those of you mentioning you're interested in the e-club or learning more about the RAG or NAMI, Put your email address in the chat. I'll download the chat and make sure that you all have the information on the Rotary Action Group on Mental Health, including the Wellness in a Box program, which is a fantastic program. The information on NAMI, National Association of Mental Illness, and the information on our mental health committee that we have. We meet every month. So put your email in the chat and we will make sure to send that out to you. Okay, a couple more questions. We have Dr. Prima, who's going to be our guest speaker at our district training assembly coming up on April 27th. If you haven't registered, make sure you do. You're welcome, Dennis Caltagirone.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. Very important concerns and issues he raised up. It's a very good platform. I'll just give 1 minute of my background. I've written modules for teachers, 45 years being teacher. And then I'm also with the academic chair with International Hindu University. You were also involved. So Barbara, yes, I've heard your name. And the thing is, I wanted evidence-based some research because I teach in Broward College, Miami-Dade College, University of Miami as an adjunct faculty. So I have gathered, we can do a postdoctoral research even, where we gather information and we do a little, I'm totally on preventive and promotional. So we train the teachers, we train the parents, we train the community, we train. So it's the training which takes place, that instead of sadness, they say depression. And I don't want, immediately the adolescents getting into therapeutic. So, more work on promotion and prevention. That is almost 5,000 teachers all over 9 countries. I've trained the teachers. Teachers need to be trained. Parents need to be trained. So the adolescents are safe. That is evidence-based research. If we have the data, it can be anonymous. It can be like a lot of people can help. The group can help. But my focus is like, why not we do a research and then help them do this training for prevention and promotion, and then the group which doesn't have, have the training, and how do they face something like that? We can do. We have evidence-based research in this. Thank you. I will, of course, on 27th we'll be meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Grace, you're from NAMI as well, and I think you're with another district with a mental health club as well.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm really excited because I saw this on Facebook. So hello, everyone. President Gordon, District Governor Barbara, and also a shout out to Peter, who organized this as well, and all of the Rotarians here. I am part of the cause-based Rotary Club of Mental Health and Wellness, and we're in District 5280. And we'll be celebrating our 2-year anniversary in May, which is fitting for the Mental Health Awareness Month. And with NAMI South Bay, we actually have our NAMI Walks Greater Los Angeles County and Mental Health Fest, which is happening on May 4th. And our mission really is to unite our community in tackling mental health crisis affecting all of us. And I just feel like I'm in the community where I want and need to be, because it's like you're all speaking my language. I'm so passionate about mental health and wellness, and really just want to be the change, really like be part of the change. And whatever that is, I would love to collaborate with all of you and continue this on. I plan on doing big things in the mental health space, and I'm also on the board of the National Football League alumni of Southern California, and I would love to somehow wrap the guys in with this initiative. So thank you so much. And
Thank you for joining us, Grace. Gordon, I'm going to turn it over to Peter to close us out, but do you have any closing remarks you would like to make?
No, as I said a couple of minutes ago, I'm just so grateful for the energy and the enthusiasm and the interest that everybody is showing in this topic. And thank you, Barbara, for having the foresight to establish the Mental Wellness Committee there in your district. And that's an example to many. And thank you for everything that you will do in the future, because I know that you're going to do great things in the future.
Thank you. Thanks. But I can't take the credit for it. It's all Peter Verbeck. He is the mastermind of the mental wellness community here in District 6990. the work that he's done on his global grant cannot be understated. It's just remarkable what he's been able to do and the number of children he's been able to help. So Peter, close us out here.
Yeah, thanks, Barbara. It's teamwork. It's all of us working together and basically creating miracles. It's not one individual. And I do want to bring up that please join our next meeting. We'll announce it shortly. And the goal and what we have found out is such a broad subject matter. There's so many different disciplines within it that need to be looked at. One that was brought up tonight with Grand Bahama Island, which is part of 6990. A lot of people don't know how Bahamas is so spread out, but we have opportunities as well for you guys to come up with ideas of one or two things you'd like to work on, and our district can assist in doing something there. And Barbara, if I'm not mistaken, you might be going there, and it would be great to see how we can help out there. And another initiative that's taken off is that we came to find out with this global grant, the number of kids that wanted to come in the program, and there's just not enough counselors, not enough psychiatrists, not enough pediatricians. And so we're working on providing perhaps some different types of grants for students that want to get into that field. It is so much needed, and discussing that as well. But anyway, Gordon, thank you. I just want to slip in a little quip here that I remember you came to Melbourne with a tennis group. There were about 75 or 80 of us. And then we ended up speaking together. And you asked me to go to the Melbourne Club, which is the first club of Australia. And you're dressed nicely, and everybody as well there. And I was in a sweaty shirt. He says, just come with me. It won't be a problem. But I said, I'm not dressed. And we did ride over there together, and it was a wonderful meeting. But thank you for being so inspiring and compelling, and to be with us tonight. Thank you.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I did record this session, so if you know of people who've missed it, we can make it available. If you want to show this to your club, this would be a fantastic thing to, again, just start the dialogue so we can end the stigma. And put your oxygen mask on first. So good night, everybody. Thank you so much. And Gordon, thank you from the bottom of my heart.
No, thank you. Great to see you all. See you all
Thank
soon.
you.
See you in Singapore.
Thank
But
you.
in anyone's case, I'll see you on Sunday. Bye.
Aloha.
Bye.
Everybody.
Aloha.
Bye,
Take care.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.